that is going to be my very first Tutor Tuesday. And my goal is to just help out fellow artists and myself with improvement. For today, I'm just going to be redrawing some of my old characters and talking with you on how to best improve your own art just from, drawing stuff that's really old. The artwork I'm going to show you is from 2011. And I definitely enjoyed drawing this stuff at the time, but I think it's good if you can go back in your old art and appreciate what it was for the time. Like for this was more than 10 years ago, hard to believe. Just want to improve upon my drawings and get some color for them. And hopefully this stuff will help you with your own drawings. And I'm not very used to talking to myself as I draw, so we will see if I remember. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple of references that I have for the outfit, just to get a good idea of what the overall drawing and pose is. I'm just going to do comic size. It's not comic page size, 11 by 17. Just because it's fun. I know, this was back in my anime girl days where I was obsessed with drawing comics and reading every type of manga that I could find. Wasn't a lot back then, so it kind of felt like it was possible to read every kind of manga, but I don't know if that's true now. But yeah, I definitely have a lot of shonen animes. When I was working on this particular comic, which I called Force Bang off of my website. But yeah, you could see some influence from my reading textures online things when you're looking at these. First thing I want to do is whenever I'm drawing something and I want to pose it, I look up references that I like. So to better capture the anime, I'm going to search for girl power pose. See if that kind of gets close to my original pose right here. Or maybe I should do girl holding sword. Originally, the outfit I designed here was kind of kimono inspired with the top and the sailor pleats and things, which I think is still cute, but could probably find a girl in a skirt if I wanted. But I want to get kind of close to how I had my reference here. Try a girl holding sword behind back. Yeah, this one's a little bit more closer to that, but it looks like it's AI. So I'm not sure if I'll trust that. Now, I'm not going to trace these references. I'm just going to eyeball them, which is usually what I attempt to do. I don't want to copyright infringe when I'm drawing something. And sometimes I don't copy the pose word for word. It's mostly just for... Okay, so this I think is good for mainly the front part of the image, but not necessarily for the lower part, because I want to get a whole body picture in here. Probably use this one for the standing body, because it looks like she has boots. Okay, standing with hand on hip. So because I'm looking at this drawing here, and I initially had her hand on her hip there, so I probably want to use a different body pose for that if I can help it. Both hands are not necessarily what I wanted. But that doesn't mean I have to use both hands. This one looks good. Maybe I should specify the search hand on one hip. That helps. Kind of helps. Oh yeah, I like that one. I wish it was a little harder. That one might work. So as you see, I'm kind of fusing everything together when I'm getting my references together. Now this one is good for the hand gesture here, but it's not entirely good for the pose because I initially had the idea that this hip was going to be popping out rather than that one. But we will see how it goes. But for right now, I'm going to focus on the body gesture. Now sometimes I'll just start drawing a circle for the head, right? Let me just close that so you get more room. It's way too late. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, sometimes I'll do that. But today, I feel like I'm going to make it darker so you guys can see. Try to capture the line of motion, which there isn't really a line of motion per se, because she's not like leaping or jumping like she was in some of my other drawings that I had her do. Her hip be kind of sticking out a little bit. So that's where the line of motion is for me. So this I drew the hip cage, and I might adjust as I go, but kind of keeping in mind that this line here is kind of centered through my drawing, and I'm going to draw a little rib cage up here. just to pump out that this is like where her hip's going to be. And then I can already tell that this is going to be really tall for the drawing I have. I'm just going to Control Shift and bring it down a little bit just so I can fit her head. So I envision that as her rib cage, and then I'm going to come up and draw her head, which will also have a line in the middle. Boop, boop. Just drawing a quick couple of lines here for her eyes, which I will not get into right now. Sometimes I get caught up in the other things that I want to draw. So I'm going to try to capture the forms in these drawings best I can. So I want this gesture here with the arm is the most important. So first I will draw a little circle where the shoulders is off the rib cage, and I might lengthen that a little bit. Spread it out because I could see I'm kind of laying in a neck shape right here that is really close to the shoulder. So I may bring it up just a teeny bit from the shoulder here. Move that up here. Look at my original pose again. So she had her sword out much further than what I initially drew. But I might adjust it to make it the anatomy look a little better. Okay, so I actually saw a tip online that you should aim for the 2 points aligned for the best point of circle. Oh, I don't know what I'm talking about, but basically you want the length from the elbow and the forearm from the upper arm. They should all be about the same length. As long as they're pretty much equidistant to each other, it'll look right anatomy-wise. Which obviously you can punch that up a little bit if you want it to look more horrific or maybe cutesy. But so I'm just putting in shapes right now. Got a little bit of her upper shoulder in there. Just I'm drawing an initial separator line for my fingers here, because there's always going to be one thumb, which will be off the pad of the circle that I drew here, and then I draw 2 extra little lines just to get the shape of the fingers in. And obviously they're all not exactly alike, as most fingers will be kind of off the circular line here, if that helps. So you'll get kind of the longest finger, the tallest, which it's not the same in every human being, obviously, but it's just kind of helpful for drawing hands, I think. Oh no, I drew 5 fingers. Whoops. Let's just get rid of that extra one. But yeah, and then your thumb kind of comes off, and depending on if it's a right or hand, and it usually just gets like 2 squatty shapes. But that's just one way of drawing hands. Obviously not what we're doing here, but just a good thing to keep in mind. Okay, so I will come back for the sword shape a little later. I mean, I might draw an initial kind of rectangular shape just to give myself an idea of where that would land. But for now, I'm going to go back to full figure, which I have to admit is looking a little weird. I don't know if I did that very good. So when you're drawing your figures, you want to make sure that their feet both land on the same parallel lines. So just kind of make sure you're keeping them grounded. Once again, you should be keeping an eye on the length between the thigh and the shin and ankle kind of being a similar length. And for that reason, I might yet again make this smaller because I got it started drawing it pretty big. And I could alternatively be adjusting the canvas size, but I don't want to do that. Do, 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 do. Okay. I got a kind of a heel shape right here. And then I'm looking at this because there's a heel shape here and a kind of like a round shape here for the encaged toes and stuff. So I'm going to kind of duplicate that right here. Obviously, I'm just focusing on the big overall shapes for right now. I'll go in and add more details later. But you see, this leg is fully on thing. And this line here to give it the grounding, sense of grounding. The way I have this leg, it's not particularly good because it's kind of like, oh, she has to be up on her tippy toes in order to give that very big thing. So I might have done fucked up by doing that. But the nice thing about the rough stage is it gives us a chance to play. I am kind of keeping this line of motion in mind. It's really kind of coming through the other leg, honestly. So if I bring that out a little bit, you'll notice I'm not drawing any of the clothes right now. Obviously, she's not flat out nude dude, but she is a girl. And I am focusing on, this is where it would be good to have this thing. Cause see how her leg is kind of, I mean, it's crossed, so it really wasn't a good reference for that, for the leg pose. But I will ankle here, and then just kind of put that in. And I'm honestly making it up at this point. But you could see how she feels kind of grounded on her space. This is the weight-bearing leg, and this is the motion-bearing leg. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to bring this one in a little bit so it feels more like it's bringing in the weight of her body, that it's holding down the weight of her body. All right, and that looks a little off because this is off to the side, so I'm going to select where it is right above the joint here and adjust this one so the line of, well, bring it in a little closer for you guys to see. So this little line of motion is right where the ankle, right for the knee would be. And then bring that back out a little bit. And I think that looks better. I might want to adjust her thigh size on this side just to pop things out a little bit. I'm not too crazy about this pose. And I think this and this are not the same length, so I might adjust that slightly. I love being able to use the computer for this. Just bring those down. Yeah, that looks a little better size-wise. But I might adjust this. So these shapes I'm doing are just kind of from my own knowledge of anatomy. You can kind of, I guess you can't really see the shapes in there, but it's kind of similar there. It kind of tapers in a little bit around the shin part until you get down to the ankle part. Usually less obvious on less curvy girls. And then you have people like Yoshiro and Nene from Toilet Bound Hanako, which are like feet, all calf, cankles. But we're not drawing Nene right now. Okay, so I'm just kind of putting in a little bit more of her center area here. And I think her torso is a little weird too. Fix that. Probably would help when I add the other arm in. I think this one is a little close to, still not quite the right length. Boop. Yeah, I like that a little better. So we have a little bit of more collarbone in here. Okay. So I made little coyote here, that's her name, a little busty. Not too busty though, because she's based off of me and I'm a B cup, so I try not to draw her too big. But honestly, it's kind of hard in cartoons. There, that looks better. She was a character based off of me. She isn't me now. Like, I would be drawing a much, much more bigger character if I were drawing me. Okay, I'm going to do the hip on hand part now. I will lift that up there so I can look at my original drawing again. So yeah, it looks like the original elbow shape right here would go about here. No, even further out. Let me just draw the shape of the hand really quickly down here. I don't know why I was drawing finger shapes. I don't need to. Not at this moment. And then the elbow should be right about here, I think, because it's about equal distance, maybe a little bit closer to here. So there's like a little bit more oomph from this one because for her, her motion is facing this way, whereas this one drawing the face, the motion is drawing this way. Oh, okay, guys, can't see my pencil, so I would say for this one, her hip, the motion is kind of moving towards the left, whereas this one, the motion is moving towards the right. But so the little, because this whole torso is pointing this way, or since the whole motion is going this way, the arm movement is going to be a little higher. And then get those shapes in. It really helps to look at anatomy books and things. Like I've had a lot of practice doing that. So I am familiar with the kind of what the underlying shapes are like. This isn't full furry vibes because otherwise I might be drawing like legs that were with the kind of knee shape facing the opposite way. But my initial drawing was, with human legs, so she's really more like coyote girl than cat girl. So I think we got the pose down pretty well. I'll go ahead and add in those finger shapes. So, like, once again, gonna draw a middle line for about where the middle finger is. Draw a couple of separators for full fingers, and then just kind of round them out to a full shape, which will be more obvious when I'm doing the line drawing, when I do my final inks. So little coyote here has a bit of a scruff face for her coyote face. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the shape in for that little triangle face, as you can see here. I'm going to pop in her ears too. And then this big circle here I'm putting in her face is going to be for her snout. And I'll draw a kind of rectangular shape for now for her, more like Rompizoid, is that? Yeah, just this shape here for her nose. She's a coyote girl. And then I'm going to do the big anime eyes. And if I wanted to, I could just kind of like copy paste and put the exact same eyes on the other side, which probably will do when I do the official inks to save time. For this time, I'm just going to get in the basic shape, kind of get the whole eye in there, and then there'll be an extra round circle shape in the center there, which I will probably add a highlight in when I'm doing my original shape. Give her a little bit of a growly shape to her Oh, I should have done that before. I'm actually gonna go in and erase a little bit. No, not that much, not that much. Erase the shape. So I'm going to draw a little bit of a line over this to make her eyes look a little bit more angry, like she is in my original drawing. And then I'm going to just erase a little bit. So like even without the eyebrows, she's already starting to look a little angry. But I will put the eyebrows in. I originally just have line and eyebrows because that's very anime, but I'm going to do filler eyebrows. And you see they're kind of following the shape of the eyes. I think I drew that a little low, so I'm going to make that. And that one I'm feeling lazy, so I'm just going to copy and duplicate that. Whoop, keep original image. Mirror it. Okay. So she looks a little surprised actually too with these eyebrows, so I'm going to bring them down a little bit more. Angry anime girl. Usually I would make her ears kind of reflect anger too by rotating them slightly back a little bit, like how animals move their ears back. But I'm not going to do this time because or maybe I'll just do it for 1 year because it's kind of like, what the fuck are you doing? Kind of eye look at me because I kind of like that now. But I will draw like usually a happy animal might have the front of the ears facing right towards you, but for her I'm just going to have them kind of be slightly to the side, the inner ears here, over here too. And then just to kind of rowdy face with her little teeth in here. She has teeth. I should probably zoom in on that little. Boop-a-doo. And then she'll have her tongue down there. Obviously, it will be more obvious in the inks, but a line drawing is fine. At this point in my life, I didn't have bangs, so I kind of gave her like a wispy bun on top of her head, which I'm going to just pop in by drawing a circle. And this part of the circle will be erased away in the original thing, but it's just so I get overlapping shapes just so it comes across. And I'll bring the lines in there too when that comes up. But for her hair, I drew no bangs and with a very long, wispy bangs at that are only showing up there. So I'm going to see if I can imitate that. Though I might have to come over her eyes a little bit because that's the downside of long hair. That many people that draw long hair and don't have long hair seem to realize is that it gets in your eyes. And maybe this one can kind of wisp off to the side like the wind is blowing. No, I'll let it drip down too. Just a kind of overall curvy shape. As she has a curly-ish hair underneath her bun here. Wavy, I guess, is a better word. Okay, I'm just going to pop open, give the original squares a little bit of a furry texture. And I think that's pretty much face done. Am I forgetting something? Oh, I want to fix this shape a little bit to give it more of that doggy look. She's not a dog, she's a coyote. But boop, ba-doop, ba-doop. Okay, you know, maybe I'll just quickly search girl in kimono and look at that really quickly. I'm not gonna copy paste exactly, because obviously hers doesn't have kimono sleeves, just bare sleeves. Alright, it looks like the left side, or maybe the right side facing you, is the one that crosses over the front. So I'm just going to gonna change my color so I don't confuse her body, and just kind of get that first kimono shape in there. I'll get my other reference in there too. I know that kind of is a very big shape that goes like that. Pops into about her, above her waist, so get that collar in, and then I will do the other ones around the corner sticking in. And this is a sleeveless kimono top, so I'm just going to draw the remnants of the sleeveless sleeve hole entrance there. And I might just draw the hint of another one underneath there to just give it some cool visual interest. But we'll see how it comes out at the end. And then I'm going to draw a big square shape for the obi sash, just about where her things would hit. There was a little extra part of the kimono underneath that. It's usually part of the top that's kind of folded up and underneath it, from what I understand. Okay. So the skirt, go back over to the previous page where I had the girl and the sword. Some of those girls were already in mini skirts. Like this one here. So you'll notice that the fabric kind of poofs out in the direction of her hips. So like for a little coyote here, I would probably draw a little bit of extra bit of fabric on this side. And I should not make it too long, because mini skirts are cute. Even though me personally would never wear a mini skirt because I'm afraid of showing my underparts. So for a pleated skirt, I'm just gonna draw the lines initially, and then just kind of circle the bob part. Oh, shoot. Okay. So just really, really quickly, I'm going to just rotate my whole drawing over. Yeah, that's weird. It doesn't quite look as right, which is good, because that gives me an opportunity to adjust. Like, I think that this is a weird angle now. So maybe not so much the foot, but this part of her leg. I'm going to adjust really quick. And it's always a good idea to flip your drawings like this if you can, just to make sure that the pose looks good and that you haven't drawn something weird. I forget to do that a lot of the time when I'm rushing. Yeah, that looks a little bit more like a weight-bearing leg, but I would actually bring that out a little bit more now, just to give her stance a little wider, which is going to mess up the skirt drawing I just did, but oh well. But yeah, this is all leaning in a little bit too much, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. So I'm going to just bring this little center forward here, and bring it out a little bit. I'll make her stand slightly wider. And that'll actually help with the hips being about the same size because I have room to make them bigger now. And oh yeah, this knee is all messed up. To fix that. Okay, I think that pose is better now. Let me just fix this foot. That still doesn't seem quite right to me. There. With the skirt, I'm going to adjust that too. These pleats seem to be like a little too short now. Anything else I need to fix? Maybe her upper body could lean a little bit more. Just gonna select around her arm because I feel like that placement is still good. And then bring that to her center point. Bring that over a little bit. I didn't quite get one of her. Yeah, whoops. Yeah, that looks better. A little bit more realistic of a pose, although maybe not as pronounced. But yeah. This leg seems too short now. Okay. Let's just. No, not at that point. Going to lengthen. Point out. Bring that down. Slightly. If I wanted to make sure that she was absolutely standing on the same level of ground, I would bring out a roll. And yeah, absolutely, she is not. I can see that line. You're not standing on it right. Bring it down a little bit more. Yeah, I like that better. So, okay, so flipping it back, making sure I didn't wreck anything. I kind of did. This leg is looking all weird. I can't get anything right, can I? Let's just fix this little part there. I think that'll help. So I'm just gonna move on to giving her her little boots. Maybe I will adjust the skirt again real quick. Because I just basically want to make sure your lines are kind of following the form of her body underneath. Like this is a loose skirt, but if it was tighter, I would follow if I were drawing something that had stripes, I would make sure it would kind of follow the circumference of her leg rather than just go straight, straight, straight. But I'm not. Okay, I think I'm going to leave that part as is. And really quickly, I've forgotten to give her her tail. Her tail is usually centered from about here. I'm just going to, yeah, usually if her hip is sticking out this way, but might be more visually interesting to have her tail kind of thrashing this way, just so that the circular movement keeps your eye moving. Get a little bit flush, so that I can get a flush. probably adjust this drawing slightly so it's more centered. Now onto her boots, which it looks like I gave her knee-high boots. But yeah, usually when you're drawing boots, they're not necessarily skin tight. Like even skin tight boots will still like stick out slightly from the thing, but her leg. So not like you could just go, whoop, she's wearing boots, you're done. Um, I usually try to draw the fabric a little bit underneath and make sure that it's kind of following that same rhythm of her knee and make it stick out just a teeny bit because it looks like the boots I initially gave her are kind of don't necessarily stick around her ankle, but instead, or not stick tight around her thing, but kind of flare out a little bit at the top. Probably so she can get into them because they don't have laces. You'll notice I gave it a little bit of thickness around the top part. And then I will kind of follow the shape of her leg, but not necessarily follow it around exactly to give to the thickness of the boots. But the foot I pretty much I'm going to keep as is because I was keeping it in mind when I was drawing it. The boot in mind rather than her foot when I was drawing it. But down here you can kind of see a little bit of sole on the bottom of her boot, so I'm imitating that down here. So it's just not like a sock, it's like a shoe. And then there's a little bit of extra fabric lines around her ankle. And I will do the same on this shoe, although I will whoop, zoom in a little bit more so I can kind of copy the shapes that she did here, that this woman did in her pose. Boop, boop, boop. Sometimes if you want to get the exact right pose, it might be better to take a picture of yourself and making that pose. If you don't want to make an amalgam like I did. Like, you don't need to look up references for every little thing. I'm kind of copying the shapes of the folds in her boot there, just because I think that this leg is the one that I really wanted to emulate here for her, for this particular outfit. And then bring that down. Boop. Still a little cartoonish looking, but I'm not after photorealism here. Okay, so I think that's it for the initial rough drawing. As you could see, not photorealistic, still very scratchy. Now I'm going to make a whole nother layer for this, just because in digital art it's much easier to work on multiple layers. And then change the color back to black, just because, yeah, for time's sake it's easier just to go color on color, but oh, for time's sake it's easier to do black lines, but if I were doing a more serious drawing I might choose a darker color of the color the item is going to be. Alright, and I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can. I can be a little bit more of a perfectionist when it comes to my line work than my initial rough sketches because I like that. So you'll see that I'm using the curve tool because I like not having to redraw lines over it again. Sometimes it kind of loses a little bit of the original drawing, unfortunately, but I like going into the clear fill and then, whoop, I did not mean to make a bigger thing circle. Stop, no, shrink it down. Okay, and just make the ends more tapered to give it a little bit more character. You'll notice that I do it kind of on the top too, because with your lines, It's also good to kind of think about light sources and things. You'll often have thinner line work on top as opposed to because that's where the sun is coming from. Or, but if you have like a lamp or another light situation, the light actually might be coming from another direction, like the right. This would be easier to point when I had if I had a pen tool. But I feel like with the curve tool, at least, I'm not drawing the same line over and over again. I'm just trying to trace the initial lines that I made. And sometimes I find out the initial lines I made were no good. So I make a new line. Alright, and then this part of her hair, which we didn't really cover in the initial rough sketch, is kind of tied behind her head because of the bun. And you'll notice there's a little bit of overlap right here with the lines. I just tend to go back and erase them. And then make that initial top line a little softer. And I'm actually going to shrink the size of this line to like 15, so it's easier to work with that huge hunker line. And some cartoonists, and you can certainly do this to make your characters pop, will initially outline the entire character with a big thick line. Like, um, just, and that is a totally legit way of doing it, but I like the subtleties of thinner lines. And it just comes down to what you're enjoying when you're drawing, ultimately. Like, for her fur, I would probably actually go in with a pen tool. I'm using a G pen right now, and like make the lines that way so they come out a little bit more rough and less just to give it a little bit more of a furry look, less even. Because ultimately she's pretty furry. I made it even go in where her and where some of her body is and add a little bit of lines of uneven lines just to give it the impression that she has fur and not skin. Just where the fur might come out and where gravity might have the fur lowered slightly. Come out with her nose. And then make the bottom of her chinny chin chin a little furry too. Not so much that it looks like she has a beard. And can't really help that with animals. And when there's fur around the chin, there's always going to be a kind of beard energy. Just gonna lighten up the line work a little bit so it doesn't look so extreme from one end to the other. Jeez, I was worried about talking to myself and I'm doing it just fine. here I thought I was going to get in 2 poses, but I'm only getting in the 1. It just goes to show you how slow of an artist I can be sometimes. And bring in the head shape over here again. Here I'm just kind of getting in the eye shape, making sure it still looks like she's angry instead of, surprised. Could be surprised. Could be slightly surprised. I forget the context of why she transformed in the first place. Just that I thought the outfit she made were a little cute. Or the outfits I drew. Totally not original outfits, but doesn't mean that they're not cute. And I mean not original in the sense that I'm sure somebody has come up with a kimono top like that. Not anybody that I've seen personally, but I'm sure that it's not an original idea. I could not come up with a short kimono top and mini skirt in this anime landscape that we live in. Didn't the girl from Final Fantasy X have one, but with long sleeves? Probably. I think I'm remembering that right. Anyway, here's the flip face. Yeah, but I don't have to draw it twice. Yay! And sometimes I like to draw in individual lashes, but this time I just kind of gave her that, like the tweaked cat eye kind of look, which I'm going to pop out a bit from the end of her eye. And this one, the hair is kind of her eye is kind of underneath the eye, so that's why I don't feel the need to repeat. Although technically, when I bring this down, that one is also underneath the eye. Shh. Bringing down her little bangs. Of course, her eyebrows are barely noticeable. And I could do the anime thing of drawing the eyebrows over her hair, but I think in this case I won't. But it helps to draw that shape initially just so you can get a feel about where it would be. Because even if you can't see something, it's always going to be there underneath the thing that's listed. Like, body shapes are always going to be underneath your clothes. I will initially, alright, this is a pen job. Draw the eyebrow shape over the thing just to make sure that I'm getting the whole shape in right. Giving it that little bushy feel. Coyote girl. And then I'm going to go in and erase the extra line, which honestly I don't think I really needed. But yeah, if I bring out this layer and hide the thing, you can kind of still see the angry eye, so it still comes across, I think. Anyway, back to the roofs. Back to the penmanship. Inks. Thanks. My cat is looking forlornly at my office door. But she was the one who wanted to be in here with me, so she's going to have to wait patiently. Raise that up a little bit. Now you'll notice I'm kind of flicking out as opposed to in. That's because the weight of my pen is set to from pressure, and this way it gives the pen a little bit of a flicker. There we go. And now I'm going to erase some of these little extra lines. I'm going to have to make sure that those close together so when I get to the coloring stage it'll fill properly. Alright. Outer hair wisp. So hard to duplicate the curve. I don't think I did a very good job drawing it initially. But I still think it's cute. Alright. Now that part can be thicker because it's going down, but I think the upper part should get a little bit lighter above 9. I'm going to really quickly go in there and draw the individual bun strands that I did earlier. In fact, I'm going to bring down the line weight even more just so that they don't distract overall from the overall shape. You'll notice that despite what I said about thick lines, that most of my thickest lines are still around the outside of the character. That's on purpose. Alright, and really quickly I'm going to give her highlights from Polygon Tutor. Just enough. I didn't do it earlier when I was duplicating it because then they don't come on the same side. If that makes any sense. And erase a little bit of this eye too. There can be prettiness in the eye peeking through the hair. That's too thick. Good. Bring mine back a little bit. Honestly, I should probably have some hairlines like before to kind of indicate that the motion of the hair is coming around. I don't put them all equidistant because it looks a little bit more natural like that. Bring some close to the others and kind of stagger it a little bit. And then I will go in and clean up the tips. Now I see under here that my nose and my mouth aren't quite centered in this in his face, this muzzle. That was the word I was looking for. Don't. So I'm just gonna make it a little bigger. now on do the ends for this nose, make it look pretty. And then things for this mouth. Make sure it doesn't look too smiley, because she's an ugly girl. And then the little things in there. Okay. Now I will mirror these. Can you tell I like using the mirror tool a lot? It just makes things so easy. Okay, that's good for the nose. I'll probably bring the mouth in a little bit more. And that'll look okay. Maybe I'll make the nose a little bigger. I mean, I know more small, petite noses are more feminine, but we're fighting tropes, right? Not sure I liked how this nose came out. It's a little bit more rectangular before. There. Okay. I'll just adjust it slightly. Raise, raise, nudge, nudge. Okay, just gonna check what it looks like without the... Okay, you know what? I lied about the eyebrows. I think she needs them. So I am going to go ahead. Too distracting. A lot of people draw necks thinner than what they actually are, and I think I'd like to do a kind of in between, honestly. Try to go stick with the with thicker necks, but I'll more often than not, just go ahead and make them smaller, just because it's more attractive looking on anime. Uh, well, we'll see how this looks like when it comes. Just getting the big shapes in there, like all the extra little lines. I don't necessarily bring them smaller. The inner lining doesn't need to be a... If I gotta get time to color it, I better step it up. Okay. And I'm making the stuff on the lower a little thicker just to make it look like it's affected by gravity, as it's a drawing and not an actual being. I don't like that. I don't want it to overlap the bang too much. I'll just work around it rather than going over it because I feel like I would redraw too much if I did it that way. Okay. Some of the lines that kind of overlap each other I might show. Like obviously I'm not going to draw over the whole circle shape, but just to give it a little bit of that dimension, to give it kind of, get it that kind of circular shape.
Hey guys, so the rest of this is gonna be a speed paint. Funny story. So, after this point, my old Surface Pro tablet that I'm using, got it back in 2018, basically powered down. So, this computer doesn't really have a built in fan per se, so if it gets warm enough, and at the time I had a lot of apps running in the background, it will shut down. So I learned my lesson and had less things running in the background when I did this. The following week, which as of recording this, it's been done. But so for a period of time, I had to return off the thing, and the stream was still recording somehow in the background. And I turned it back on, and I realized that my microphone was actually plugged into my desktop PC, which is my little Surface tablet sits in front of my desktop because my tablet has a screen I can draw on directly, whereas my desktop PC does not. So I'm still using the Surface tablet for my computer drawing, but in this particular case, I had plugged in my microphone to the computer tower, and I thought to myself, oh shit, this was completely plugged in wrong, and unplugged it. And apparently, I must have not plugged it back in, or it stopped recording my voice for whatever reason, because the rest of the stream does not have any voice. So that's why I'm speeding this little draw up for you. I mean, not that there was too much more information that I could teach besides just running through what I do in my little drawings. I'm obviously very obsessive compulsive with the way I draw and undraw things over and over again. I tried to cut a lot of that out in the editing, but boy, I need to practice on that. Things I probably forgot to mention is a lot of the time when I'm erasing, I'm not actually using the eraser tool. I use Clip Studio Paint, and they have an option beneath the colors for the pen to choose clear. And clear will allow you to use whatever pen or tool that you're using, but it basically functions like an eraser tool, but it removes things like the tool that you're using. So a lot of the time I would do a curved line that would function as the same curved line that I use to draw things. And that just makes things easier when I'm erasing. Depending on the circumstances. Some things I still need to go in with a regular old eraser for, especially if it's bigger, but, just using the eraser tool is pretty helpful for that. Alternatively, I think I talked a little bit about box pleats is what I ended up doing with this skirt. Box pleats are different from regular pleats in the sense that there's like a whole third piece of fabric that makes the pleat itself kind of a box shaped. Obviously, it looks like a square. Kind of hard to explain, literally showing it to you, but it's something I picked up drawing Sailor Fuku for Sailor Moon, or whatever. You know, her little mini skirts were pleated skirts, so for cosplay, I made those pleats. So as opposed to a regular pleated skirt, which is basically just a kind of accordion that you sew down. The pleated skirt has a whole nother panel that you sew into the back of the skirt and the two sides. But yeah, so it doesn't show up too often in the drawing, but there is a difference in those two things. Also, I think I kind of mentioned it briefly in the drawing, but I wanted to cover the reason why I do lighter lines on top and the bottom lines on bottom. I don't think I was very clear in my earlier thing, because when I'm drawing, I'm often preoccupied, so I have trouble finding the right words and kind of babble on a lot of the time. I'm sure you picked that up. I mean, I even said hip cage. It's like a hip box, Kelsey. It's just confusing rib cage and hip cage, and that's just me being very silly. But to scroll back to the sunlight, or the thinner lines on top, you kind of think about like the sun hitting you, because it's wherever the light source is coming on the drawing is probably going to have thinner lights, whereas on underneath is going to have thicker lines, so that it's kind of like imitating shadow, which may not be particularly obvious, but it is something I do a lot when I go in and I edit down my lines when I'm doing inks. Not sure if it's obvious that I'm doing that in the drawing. You kind of get the idea. So I think those are pretty much all I have to cover for right now. Feel free to ask me more questions if there's something else I wasn't very clear about that you want to cover. And I'll do my best to answer it, or maybe if it's long enough explanation, I could do another stream about it. Next week, which I've already filmed, is I'm going to be coloring in this drawing, which that should be fun, right? You will probably see this the week after I've uploaded it, but I am still relatively new to editing, so it might take me a while. I'm going to try to get a weekly video out after this, but it might be faster to just catch up with my streams, or on my Patreon I upload the streams if you're not around the time to catch it. Links are below. Just have a delightfully awkward day.